The governor goes on the road and details of his education plan for Detroit emerge, plus charges filed against an Inkster cop and the headlines we're talking about. Stay put. My Week starts right now.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta.
Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us for My Week. I'm Christy McDonald. You couldn't open a paper this week without seeing Governor Snyder in the headlines. He's preparing to release his plan on fixing Detroit schools. He's traveling the country, spinning Michigan's comeback story. He's selling Prop 1, and he's dodging rumors of a presidential run. So coming up, are the governor's trips an attempt to raise his national profile for 2016, or is a White House run just really too far-fetched? Plus, the governor prepares to reveal his plan on how to improve education in Detroit and in Michigan. Will it incorporate any of those recommendations from the Coalition for the Future of Detroit School Children? And how much money will have to come from Lansing? Also, a former Inkster police officer in jail charged with beating a driver after a police camera catches him in the act. And we'll talk about some of this week's attention-grabbing headlines. That is all coming up for you on My Week. But we do start with the governor's answer for improving education in Michigan. Snyder is expected to announce his plan this week or next. He has met with leaders of the Coalition for the Future of Detroit School Children. Last month, the group released its own recommendations on how to fix education in the city. Now, reports say the governor will reveal a plan to split Detroit public schools into two districts. One district would exist to pay off the debt using revenue from the current 18 mil tax. The other district would focus on educating children. Sound complicated? Yep, and that is where we begin our discussion with our My Week contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Gentlemen, it's always good to see you. We're starting to hear reports about this, and the governor is set to announce it anytime now. So, Nolan, when we say two school districts, that confuses people right off the bat on this.
Well, it's two entities, basically. The old school board and school district under the emergency manager would stay in place basically as a pass-through entity to raise the tax millage, the 18 mills property tax the district still raises, and pass it on to pay off the bond debt. The other district, if you would, the new company they're calling it, would be in charge of everything else, would handle the education, the schools, and what have you. And it would be what's called like a local education agency, which is a better way of calling it an all-charter district when you're trying to navigate the politics of Detroit. And basically, it would create a portfolio of schools, each one more or less independently operated, not necessarily under a central control, but perhaps run by various charter operators or by the LEA itself. I don't know what the specifics are going to look like, but it's certainly going to look different than it is now.
And all charter districts, and we just call it what it is.
Well, it's not an all charter district. I mean, first of all, it's going to be run.
Like one.
It's going to be run by a board that has appointees from the governor and the mayor. It's going to look a lot like the reform board that we had here in Detroit 15, 16 years ago. This is a plan that actually has been pushed by quietly by the Duggan administration behind the scenes, sort of alongside the coalition, this old company, new company thing. It's not an all-charter district. It doesn't look like an all-charter district. They're not going to have, there will be some DPS charters within this district, but the charter schools will still operate the way they do in Detroit, and there will be an education commission that manages all of it.
They described it as looking like Highland Park and Muskegon Heights, which are all charter districts.
So
they're not going to call it. They're not going to call it that. It's going to look more like New Orleans than it does the current Detroit model.
Okay, so wait a minute. So if you're talking about a new board that's going to be appointed by Duggan and Snyder, and then you're talking about a commission that's also going to be overseeing that as well. Where does that leave then the Detroit School Board, which is in place right now but does not have a lot of power because of an emergency manager?
Under this
so you got three boards?
Under this plan, they'll manage the indebted old district. I mean, I think that's going to be a point of some real negotiation and pushback from Detroiters who, again, I think will have a very good case for saying, why are we being treated differently from every other school district in the state? Everybody else has some control, some local control over their schools. I don't think you can even constitutionally single them out for permanent
Well, you can under the
loss
emergency
of that.
law. And what they're saying is it's not permanent. What they're saying is once the debt is paid off, the old district or the old school board would resume its control over DPS schools. Now, how many of those are left by that time is anybody's guess. But this commission you're talking about, there'll be one additional entity or board or what have you to run the DPS part of this. Then there'll be an overall commission to to oversee all education, charter, EAA, DPS, to handle things like joint enrollment. I didn't see transportation mentioned in the plan. I don't know if he's going to take that on or not. If he doesn't, he misses one of the key problems in the city.
I mean, one of the
because
other
choice doesn't work without transportation.
And one of the other key differences between this and an all-charter district is that this education commission will control who opens schools, where and when, and will control who closes them. Charter schools right now don't operate under anything like that.
But he's not going to limit the number of authorizers, and he's not going to.
Well, people can, but they will have to get that authorization from the Education Commission. They will not just be able to do it on their own.
Let's talk about the debt. And the coalition had recommended that the state take on a lot of the debt. Is that going to be a possibility here?
In some form, that's what they're going to use the 18 mills Detroit collects now for education to pay off their debt. That money is going to go to pay off the debt, which raises the question, how do you make up for that money in the classroom? It's 53 million. It's a sizable chunk of their operating money. And I don't know, I mean, that then depends on what you can get out of the legislature. Citizens Research Council last week said if you just strictly take it out of the school aid fund, it reduces per pupil spending by $50 a kid throughout the state. That's a big ask of the legislature. And you had the legislative leaders last week saying, there's a little bit of Detroit weariness in Lansing now after the bailout of the city.
Is there a possibility that this can then go anywhere if you don't have the legislative buy-in?
I don't think you have any choice. If you don't take care of this, you are either going to leave a debt that the state ran up unaccounted for, or you're going to leave Detroit kids $53 million short in their education, which is not. It's not the kids' fault. It's not the system's fault that this debt exists. This is about the state.
They may believe they can find that money through more efficient operations, through cutting waste. I mean,
a lot of money.
There's a lot of different options they have.
So what did the coalition then give to this? When they sat and they looked at everything for 90 days, they came out with their report. How much does it get to what the governor actually is proposing?
I think there are three big, and I wrote about the three big things that I thought came out of the coalition's report a week and a half ago, and pretty much the governor accepted in some form all three of them. One was the preservation of an actual public school district that is not all charters. Two is the creation of this education commission that will govern education in the city for public schools, charter schools, all of them. And the third is dealing with this debt. Now, how they deal with the debt seems there's sort of an open end to making up the money for dealing with the debt. But the old co, new co was something that the Duggan administration had been pushing for behind the scenes and wanted and felt like it was a solution to those debt problems.
Yeah, I don't think the commission is going to recognize very much of this plan when they see it. And, I would disagree with Steve. I think this is going to look more like an all-charter district than it doesn't. That's how it was described to us. I think the debt's on the table. The reason they dedicated the 18 mills to the debt was because they weren't sure they could get a source of money out of the legislature to pay for it. It may be that the district has to eat that $53 million a year, find some way to make up for it. And I'm not sure how heavy this oversight of all schools in Detroit is going to be. I think they're going to manage some operational stuff. They're going
to decide where schools go, when they open and when they close.
I'm not certain under this governance plan it's going to be that it's going to be that heavy-handed.
The
Well,
thing,
if it's
that, the
not
thing,
that
the thing that
heavy-handed,
gets to
then
me,
it's
though,
not.
is that we haven't even touched on what is happening inside the classrooms. And if I'm a parent and I'm still wondering, okay, you're talking about all of this structurally, what does this still mean for me and for my student who's sitting in a classroom with 35 other students and may not have the proper books and have the proper education tools? I also want to talk about the teachers. Now, the head of the Detroit Federation of Teachers, Steve Kahn, has come out and said, you know what's being done here, and I'm quoting him directly, is unconscionable. It's destruction of the city and the community, and whatever it takes, we're going to strike, rally, march. There's going to be civil rights protests. We're going to get the entire city on its feet for the defense of public education for the future of the young people. When you have the leader of the Detroit teachers saying this about a plan that hasn't even been fully announced yet, what can you say about the buy-in?
6 months ago, you know he's a frothing lunatic, for God's sakes. That's one of the problems the state's facing. They got the head of the teachers union is this BAM radical anarchist, and all of the teachers don't even follow him. So you've got disarray. There's nobody really to work with at the local union level. They've been trying to work with David Hecker at the Michigan Federation of Teachers, at the AFT. I mean, they're in a mess when it comes to working with the unions. I mean, he's threatening a strike, which might be the best thing that could happen, because then you could fire them all and start anew.
Yeah, but you can call him all the names that you want, but the teachers elected him to this post. And so what does it mean, though, when he's coming out this vehemently against a plan like this?
I mean, I think he's probably jumped the gun a little bit, and he is he's a radical element in this conversation. I also don't think you can just dismiss him. As you point out, teachers elected him. You cannot do successful school reform by beating up on teachers. There's no model for that anywhere in the country.
What about this plan makes you think that's what they're going to do?
Well, I think if the teachers don't like it, if the teachers don't want
But that's
it,
what I'm trying to say. You don't
buy-in,
have a unified teacher
you
body
do need a buy-in.
in Detroit.
You
You've
do
got
need a
half of the
buy-in.
teachers now absolutely, beside themselves because of this radical leadership that's in place. You've got chaos in the teacher ranks, which I agree is going to make it a lot harder, but I don't know how you get anything through Kahn and that BAM group that's running
I think working through David Hecker at AFT, which is one of the
he's got
things,
his hands
he's
full
on
with
the
it.
coalition. I mean, I think there are ways to get teachers to buy into this. They're not going to just buy into whatever the
You
governor
can get
wants, and that's
individual
okay.
teachers too, but you're never going to get any union cooperation as long as he's
I'm
president.
not sure that's true.
All right, well, we're going to have to see what the exact plan is when the governor rolls it out in the next couple of days, and we'll continue to talk about that. Moving on now and turning to Wayne County, a lot happened this week in the case of a former Inkster police officer caught on video beating a motorist during a traffic stop. Prosecutor Kim Worthy announced 2 felony charges against William Melendez. As you can see in this dash cam video, courtesy of the Detroit Free Press, Melendez hits 57-year-old Floyd Dent about 14 times in the head. The officer also said cocaine was found in Dent's car. However, the drug charge against Dent has been dropped. Melendez was fired from the Inkster and Highland Park police departments. This case really makes you wonder what would have happened had the video of the beating not come to light, or if there hadn't been working cameras in the police car. And then in the last 24 hours, the Inkster police chief has resigned her post in the wake of this case. So it brings together a lot of questions about, again, the relationships, Nolan, between police and between motorists, and the fact that this was an incident that happened in January, and the public didn't know anything about it. The prosecutor didn't know anything about it until a video surfaced on local television news. It's a little disturbing in itself.
Well, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of those encounters every day. Most of them don't end up this way. In fact, very, very few do. Fortunately, they had a video of this. You got a bad cop. You've got an abysmal police department that probably should have been dissolved. Doesn't have the money to operate. Doesn't have the money to train. Doesn't have the money to pay for top police officers. It should have been dissolved. Wayne County should have found a way to take over and contract services to this department. But fortunately, there was a camera, and the right steps are being taken.
This is just adding to, again, the number of cases we're seeing interactions, either deadly interactions or definitely brutal interactions between the public and police, Stephen. And it seems like there's really no one solution, though people are talking an awful lot about body cameras, but that was filmed and
That's part of the solution. I mean, one of the things that is sort of disappointing for me in this case is the attempt to make it about this one cop or this one incident. Here you have a police officer falsely accusing somebody of having drugs. So now, to me, I think you got to go look back at every arrest that officer has made where he's said somebody had drugs. I think you got to look department wide. This is not somebody who's sort of able to operate, freelance. I mean, this is part of a department and a department culture that probably needs some pretty close examination. And I think that's the key to those sort of bigger long-term solutions, rather than, this officer is fired, which he probably should be, but that's not the end of the story. There's a lot more to look into here.
What I found interesting is Kim Worthy didn't charge in the case out in Grosse Pointe, where this team of officers, this regional team of officers, guy laying on the ground, handcuffed, and clearly being, kicked and beaten and hit, and she didn't charge that officer. And the only difference I can see is that was a less sympathetic victim. This guy was a carjacker, and he did at one point have a gun. The other guy, looked like an innocent guy, and I don't know that should be the standard. And I think that was pure politics on her part. They had sympathy for the one victim and not for the other, so she charged one officer and not the other.
People are talking about body cameras, though, on police officers being a good solution here to being able to tape everything that's happening. On one hand, you can agree with that and say, well, then look, there's full disclosure. You see actually what's happening in the incident. But we've had incidents where things have been taped, but like the Eric Garner case, and you saw things playing out right there on video, and that was a different outcome. We have 20 police officers who are wearing body cameras right now at Detroit Police in the 11th precinct.
Well, it's hard to argue against more evidence. I mean, you wouldn't have known what happened in Inkster without the videotape, or in some of these other places. Doesn't mean every time an encounter is videotaped, the cop's going to be at fault or going to be charged. I think it's just as useful for the officer as it is for the public.
What do you think?
I mean, I like the idea of body cams. I think, again, the idea of single solution kind of answers is too simplistic. There are a lot of different things that need to be done, and the cameras introduce a number of other ripples that need to be dealt with. I mean, if they're serving a search warrant in your house and they have a camera, is that all public? Of course not. So now we're going to have to sort of litigate through that whole question. But if you do these things in the absence of significant policy reform, it doesn't matter anyway.
Well, and that's why there are bills pending in Michigan right now to deal with those privacy concerns. Because right now, if they had a body cam went in your house on a search, it would be public.
Anyone could look at it,
and,
right?
I think there is some concern about that.
All right. Well, meanwhile, back to the governor. He's been racking up a lot of frequent flyer miles lately. Snyder says he's going on the road to improve Michigan's image by sharing the state's comeback story. But could it really be an attempt to raise his national profile for a 2016 Republican presidential bid? The governor will only say he's focused on leading Michigan and fixing the roads. But he did say if you had to choose a president from a governor or a senator, a governor would probably be a better pick. I find the Snyder for president conversation just... I mean, it makes me smile. It makes me laugh. I don't think there's really much to it. I think there's something to him raising his national profile, because when he's done with this job here in a couple of years, I mean, if you've got a Republican in power in Washington, there'd be no reason not to plug him in somewhere.
He's out in Nevada now, or headed out there, talking to casino executives, Steve Wynn and others, big Republican funders. He's going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday as a guest of Bloomberg. We could sit here and say, well, it doesn't make much sense to this, but I'm telling you, he and some of the folks around him think it's a possibility. I mean, he has formed this PAC. I think if you think it's all about just raising his national profile, I think he thinks there's a possibility he could end up on the ticket.
Does he have a book? Because that's usually the key, right? Aren't you supposed to have a book before you do the rollout?
He could write one, I suppose. I mean, I think if you look at the field of Republican candidates, and if you plugged him into that field, there's no reason he couldn't be competitive. I mean, it's not a great field. You've got a lot of extremists in the race already who probably, even if they could get the nomination, can't win a general election. This is a guy who has won two statewide elections in a very blue state.
This is a guy who doesn't like to campaign, though, right?
I mean, he wasn't great at it last year, but he still won. I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
sort of feel like, you know, one of the mistakes I think people have made with Rick Snyder, and I made this mistake very early on, is underestimating him.
and his ambition.
And his ambition. I mean, not understanding how sort of tenacious he can be when he decides he wants to do something and get it done. I wouldn't count him out. I think he would be a strong contender, you know, on policy for sure in that Republican field. The question would be about money. How much could he raise?
But if you look, I mean, he has won 2 elections, but he won the last one, his re-election, just last fall, by only 4 points against an extremely weak candidate.
Sure.
So there's
because he didn't try though that
but
hard.
Still, you can't make the case that he can deliver Michigan. Because, I mean,
don't
look
know.
at Kasich
It's really
in Ohio,
hard.
who's also in the race, won his key state by 31 points.
Yeah.
Snyder won by 4 points against a weak candidate. There's no reason to believe he could beat Hillary Clinton, even in his own state.
I don't know.
You know, I think that works against him.
And campaigning on a national level is grueling. The everyday, under the microscope, the constant appearances,
Yeah, I
the
agree.
constant interaction is so, it would be so intense.
And yet there's about, what, 25 people vying to do it this time?
They say they're gonna do it now.
He's not one of them.
Yeah, but by January, most of those people will be out.
And that, you know, and again, that might leave room for a different sort of candidate. Who knows?
Historically, is he the best Michigan governor in the position to make a national run? Taking a look back at some of our previous governors?
Yeah, you'd
I
have to
think
go
George
back to
Romney
Romney,
was the
who,
best, but you know he stumbled early on.
Yeah.
But I mean, he probably had the best shot, and had he been able to sustain his focus on the campaign trail, might have been president.
Might have been better.
All right. And finally tonight,
Ooh, headline. The headlines graphic is back.
so exciting. The headlines
that in
graphic
more
is
than
back.
a
I know,
year.
it's so exciting. A quick look at some of the other
Dust that
stories
off.
on our minds this week, and maybe a few more we should be watching for. We dusted off the graphic just for you, Stephen. One thing on my mind this week is my daughter is taking the M-Step.
My kids are taking it too.
They're taking the M-Step this week, so it's the new standardized testing that replaced the MEEP test. There have been some problems with it, some complaints with it as the schools have been rolling it out. Our school district is not doing it on the computer. They are doing it pencil and paper. The MEA wrote a letter to the governor this week, an open letter saying, we don't think our teachers should be evaluated on the test scores this year because this test hasn't been unproven. What do you
Or
think
on
about that?
anything else.
Well, I don't think they said that. But, I mean, is it really fair to judge the teachers on a test that was cobbled together over the last 6 months because the legislature changed their mind
I
on
don't think it's
having
that much
another
different
test?
than the other tests. You know, I am not enamored of this obsession with testing anyway. I'm not sure that's the best way to measure.
You want the kids to
measure
just go
learning.
outside and play.
No, but I think I would like the curriculum and what goes on in a classroom to be about more than a once-a-year test.
it
I
needs to
think
be.
creativity, flexibility, project learning, there needs to be room for all of those approaches. And when we become so single-mindedly focused on testing as a measure of what's going on in the classroom, I think we do a disservice, not just to teachers, but to the children.
Well, I know my daughter comes home, she's like, we had the M-Steps today. A lot of eye rolling. All right, Stephen, what'd you see this week?
$325,000 from the federal government to help fix up athletic facilities at Belle Isle. So it's not just the state who's taking more responsibility. For our best park, our jewel, as we like to call it,
Might be
in
that
the
soon
Detroit
if this
River,
keeps
right?
up.
I mean, you go out there. I spent a lot of time out on the island, and I have to say that there's some things they've done I'm not enamored with, but there's a lot of things that have been done that are really making it better. And if you fixed up the athletic fields, more people use them. More people on the island is a good thing.
Hey, what don't you like?
They took some sidewalks out
Yeah.
as part of the Grand Prix prep and stuff. I'm not sure that was such a great idea. But
The single best improvement they could make on that island would be allow a whole fleet of hunters to walk through on a Saturday and kill those geese.
the geese are in the way, no question.
Well, it's their droppings,
So
if
nasty,
you will.
yeah.
You can't take a step out there without getting geese crap on your shoes.
You
and
know,
I think they need to.
Not sure you
either
can say that on TV.
I think they need to clear it out. I
So
mean, it's
you know
foul.
who the natural enemy of
It
those
is foul.
geese is the ducks, and
Really?
there are spectacular fights. It's almost like West Side Story. You know,
Jets, sharks,
Jets,
go.
sharks, the geese, ducks. It is
All right.
pretty. It's something
Nolan,
to watch.
I'm sorry, we only have a couple seconds left for your. What was your
I
on
love
your
the
mind?
fact that Gilbert's not rolling over for the Justice Department and paying a huge settlement for what really amounts to some very trifling mistakes that were made in their lending. All over the country, big banks, mortgage companies have been shaken down by this gangster government we have, and Gilbert's standing up. I hope he continues to do so.
Yeah, we'll watch that play out. Hey, thanks, guys. I love those stories. And that's going to do it for My Week. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to continue our conversation now online right after the show. So go to myweek.org for an extra segment that you won't see on TV. We're also on Facebook. We're on Twitter during the week, so make sure you connect with us there. I'm Christy McDonald, and for all of us at Detroit Public TV, have a great evening, and we will see you next week. Take care.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta.